Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome back to the channel. I've got bars here in front of you. These are all Husqvarna bars. Husky small mount right here, Husky large mount right here, and this is also a Husky large mount bar. Now you may have seen this mod before, but I figured, this is so useful I wanted to get it out to you guys. Instead of buying a bunch of different bars to fit my saws, I'll buy maybe a couple 28-inch bars, a couple of 24-inch bars, and I'll swap them between saws. So with the older saws, McCullochs, Homelites, that sort of stuff, they can be difficult to find bars for. Long bars can be hard to find for these older saws. I was able to find one 28-inch small mount Husky. That is the Archer bars that I run. Other than that, I go with the large mount for just about everything else. The small mount works great on the 10 series McCullochs, and you modify this small mount in a similar fashion to the way I modified this large mount. Basically, what you're looking to do is turn this into where you pick up oil in your drive links. So if I take this raker gauge here and I stick it through in the drive link slot, you can see it poking through right here. So that means this is where your oil is going to go, and it's going to pick up that oil from that slot. So what I've figured out is that if I put this Husky large mount bar back on a standard 372, 365, whatever you got, this oil feed slot right here is supposed to line up with this oil hole in your bar. Okay, now when you put this bar back on there, this slot right here will also line up, depending on where your chain is, where your bar ends up sitting. This slot will also line up with this groove. So what happens is, instead of the oil coming out of your feed slot and going into the small oiler hole on the bar, it fills up this pocket right here. And in a way, it might be better because now I can get oil from the drive link groove right here, as well as, right here, as well as the hole in the bar. These tend to plug up real easy. But there's one downfall to this. This side cover, if you look where the front bar stud would be right here, okay, and you look at where your oil feed slot is, it goes all the way just about to the front of that stud, okay? So when that oil's coming out of this slot up against the back side of your bar that's been cut like this, you're going to be picking up this hole, but you're also going to pick up this hole, and then your side plate is up against it. You're going to fill this well up, and you're going to fill this entire well up with oil before you actually get any oil to your bar. So one of the things that I did, I tried a little experiment here with a piece of translucent shim stock, and I made a template to go over top of the side cover. So what I'll do is I'll put the bar on the saw, then I'll put this piece of shim stock over the bar, and then put my side plate back on. So now as the oil comes out of the feed slot in the saw, it's going to fill up this channel that I cut right here in the bar, and it's going to go up against this plastic shim stock. Instead of filling up these two wells with oil, I'll get oil to my bar quicker. Obviously we warm up our saws anyway. This little bit of oil filling up in here, it's not going to take long before I got oil going to the bar. And when you're warming it up, you're really not running the chain or racing it too much anyway. So, but if it has to fill all of this up first, that's a lot of oil that's not getting to the bar for some period of time. I don't know how long that is, but it's going to be a little bit either way. Now you can see that this piece of shim stock did not hold up well. It's all warped and misshaped, and I don't know if that's from heat or the oil being up against it. But what I'll do is I'll take another piece of this shim stock, I'll make another template, And then what I'll do is I'll cut one out of a piece of brass shim stock or a thin piece of spring steel to replace this one. Now, these slots are easy to cut. I throw the bar in a vise and I just use a round file and I cut them out. If you look at the factory bar, you can see that I've modified this bar underneath in both directions. And the reason that I've done that is, one, I need to make sure to pick up the groove for the drive links, and two, I'm bringing it in towards the center because I want to be able to use Husky small mount holes as well. Okay, and some of the McCullochs are tight to the inside like that. But on the McCullochs, on the small mount, this oiler hole doesn't line up. So that's why we cut that groove out to pick up the raker slot, and then we'll pick up our feed channel for the oil. So I'm sure you guys don't like spending a lot of money on bars, and you don't want to have a bunch of bars for every saw. So this is a good way to save some money on bars and have a universal where you can put it on most saws. One thing to note is that if you're using a large mount on some of the smaller McCullochs, this slot is a tiny bit wider than a McCulloch bar. So the stud diameter on a McCulloch is just a hair smaller. So what happens is you'll end up with just a little bit more bar lift when you're tightening your chain up. So that's really only one thing to look for. You can make a adapter to take up the difference between the stud diameter and the bar slot. Basically just a little piece of flat stock bent into an S shape, go around each stud. This one in particular is off of a Homelite. It just takes up that gap so you don't have so much bar lift when you're tightening up your chain. Yeah, so these are, obviously your adjuster slots. Your pin goes in there, and that's why you'll need to modify these sometimes in both directions depending on what bar you want to run, just to pick up your adjuster and to get oil to your bar. Anytime you want to put one of these bars on your saws, you just basically look for your oil feed slot and make sure that you're going to pick up oil into your groove and through your drive links. It works out well, and it saves you from spending a ton of money on bars. So I figured that was good information to get out to you guys. Hopefully it helps some of you and you don't spend a bunch of money on a bunch of bars that you don't need. All right, thanks for watching, guys.